what are we talking about when we say that people are having responses to interpersonal interactions? I even think that you might have used the term reactivities, something about that there. So what are we talking about when we say that?
Absolutely. So I believe that folks who are wanting to do this work are doing it with the utmost best intentions, right? And I also think that if we are not learning and gaining tools on our interpersonal day-to-day interactions that we are having with people, then we're not going to really live this. We're not going to really walk this and breathe this day to day. You know, someone could be listening right now, or I could be doing a training or a lecture in a class, and folks get it. Theoretically, they get it.
Mhm.
Philosophically, they get it. Of course, you're going to have those naysayers. I'm not talking to those group of folks. I'm talking to those folks who are
Yeah.
wanting to address their own ways of contributing to environments that are not so inclusive and doesn't foster equity and diversity and inclusion and anti-racist. Like those folks, they get it. But
Mhm.
what they don't get is those interpersonal day-to-day interactions where our biases show up and how when we are being reactive, we are more likely to play out our biases. When we're not taking a moment to think through, recognizing what our own stuff is before we start engaging. And that engage can be having a conversation. Engaging could be sending a text message. Engaging could be sending an email or responding to an email. And so once we have these mechanisms that helps us with our interactions to really embrace DEI work, that's when we start to see a shift, not only on the more individual kind of micro level, but also on the meso and macro level. So how are we doing this as a collective within our program, division, organization? And how are we doing this in the community, right? And so that's what I mean by our interactions, interpersonal skills is important in order to do this intrapersonally within myself. Like, what do I need to check and be aware of? And then interpersonally as I'm engaging with other people.
Mm, mm. So many like clinical terms, even in that. I might at times, if we need to explain something a little bit
Sure.
more, that might be helpful. I do think it might be helpful to explain even that relationship between interpersonal. I'm honestly thinking about, do you know emotion focused therapy?
Hmm.
Okay. I love that. Anywho, those two little circles, and then there's the thing in the middle. I find that one, something you said that's so, so true is people get it. Like you can tell them this is important, this is how it works, understand it, got it. And then in the moment to do it, there's a lot of different responses, but it doesn't, the learning, the information, it's really hard to learn it and just do it. So there's that whole internal intra piece that's going on and having to sort that out. And then there's what's happening with other people and what's
Hmm.
theirs. And then there's in the middle when they combine. So there's like that part that you have your own situation going on.
Yes.
And then depending on who you're interacting or the context or whatever, that actually could change what's happening in the middle. So that's important to know too. So I don't know if there's anything to add to that just to help people understand those terms and what we're actually talking about. Would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Just to reiterate and highlight, it is really starting with what's going on with you internally, right? Where does your thoughts go when things happen, when you experience things, right? What do I start to think about? What story do I tell myself about myself? And better yet, what story do I tell myself about the other? Like, what narratives do I create about that experience, right? What feelings do I have internally? Am I uncomfortable? Am I frustrated? Am I angry? Am I comfortable? Am I happy? Like, what is my internal experience? And that guides how I then interact with other people outside of myself. And so, like you said, that in between those circles, that's where the real work happens. That's where the real work happens in that in between. And so my goal is to help people
Yes.
in that in between to gain some tools to help them practice this. One of the things we do when we don't have the tools and we're not engaging in this work is we go to our defaults. Our defaults are the way in which we operate. It's our day to day. Where do I default when I'm angry? Where do I default when I'm comfortable? Where do I default when I'm confused and don't understand something? We all have defaults. Some of us, when we're uncomfortable, we use inappropriate humor or laughter because we're so uncomfortable. Some of us, when we're uncomfortable, we try to change the topic because it's extremely uncomfortable, right? Whatever that default is, this goes back to that what's happening intrapersonally with me when I'm uncomfortable with things related to DEI.
Mm-hmm.